Good to go. Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be chatting about the second arc in Vagabond. And this arc is not, it doesn't have the most within it, probably to thoroughly discuss, but it seems like it's a lot of setup. This is the first time I'm reading through Vagabond. Sean and Petrick have read through it before. So, Petrick, I'll let you kick this video off. How does this arc compare for you to some of the other arcs, or even just from the first arc?
I think the better comparison is with the first arc, because first arc is all about setup. Takezo becoming a Musashi, the name Musashi, and then this is for the first time we finally get Musashi in action. And yeah, I think this arc is just to showcase just how wild Musashi is. Yeah, he is wild in this arc. Untamed beast. He's an untamed beast here, and yeah. I like it. I like this one. I think this immediately showed just how good Takehiko Inoue at drawing action scenes. But yeah, it is pretty fast. It is a quick read. This one is pretty quick. It's like only one volume and a half. But I love this one. I love this one. I don't love Matahachi. I hate him. And yeah, but I really like the setup. It is a setup against the Yoshioka school, and I like it.
Yeah. What about you, Sean?
Yeah, I think it's probably for me one of the weaker arcs, but I mean it's also just kind of the beginning of his actual journey to be the best there is. So I think it makes sense. I'd forgotten that this ends with a giant come back to me in a year and we'll duke it out again. And I was like, oh, that's right. I'm not getting the fight that I thought I was getting. I have to wait. So, in that way, I was like, because at first I was like, he's got to fight, several more people. And then I was like, oh, wait, this is the part where it just ends in a stalemate, basically. So, yeah, it's fine. I mean, it's not especially amazing,
Sean really liked when he taps on his head and he's like, this is where I'm going to crush your skull.
Yeah, I do really like that. It's like tap, tap. Like, and that's after he kind of just like, the other guy's just been like, telling him how he's going to like murder him or whatever. And he's like, I do like, so I will say, I like cocky young Musashi who just talks smack to everybody. Like it's kind of, I don't want to say it's like it hypes me up, but there's a little part of me is like, yeah, get him, get him. So that's at least a little satisfying. But we also get to see Musashi not fare amazing. He doesn't do poorly, but he's not invincible under the sun.
He gets cut on the forehead and then gets cut on the chest, and then he's like, I still want to fight him about the other. And you're like, you haven't even really fought the other. I think the problem is his confidence was boosted because all the just regular people initially, he's like, they're so slow. And then the other guys come in and you're like, oh, okay, these guys are the real enemies, not enemies, but the ones that he's actually going to be challenged by. And then you kind of get a hint of like the one guy is like really big and strong and then the other one's really fast, and so it kind of gives you a glimpse. It reminds me in some ways of almost like kind of sort of when you're playing a video game and at the beginning of the video game you have like all the powers and then something happens and you have like no powers left, but you had a glimpse of what you're gonna get. That's kind of what it reminded me of. Like, okay, you're gonna eventually see him get this back and then he's gonna be able to do this and this.
He does get a pretty good hit in on I guess we'll call him thank you. The big younger brother, Denshichiro. He gets a pretty good hit on his arm. Whereas like, I guess if he had been using a real sword, that could have done some serious damage. Yeah, but he was just using his wooden sword or whatever. The other thing is, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I didn't realize at first that it was 4 years, I think, from...
Yeah, 4 years.
So it's like, you don't really get to see the leveling up. It just kind of seems like he goes from being sad to like, I'm going to go fight everybody now.
I do think I just think it's interesting that you do see also like, I think what Jotaro, the little kid, calls his unrefined technique, but he's also kind of not afraid here at the beginning to play a little dirty. Like he just like throws one of the wooden swords at one of them to distract him and then attacks. And you're like, I don't think that's actually really, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I don't feel like that's probably what the Yoshioka school is used to, just like throwing stuff at people. So
I mean, he does kind of get it later because then the monk, when he's like, oh, by the way, Atsu, and then he just like hits him in the head.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. What do you think about this arc? Because this is the first time you're reading through it, right?
I thought that everything that happened within the Yoshioka school was a little repetitive. It was a lot of, now we're going to fight. Oh, and why does he still want to fight? He's crazy. And then, like he gets ready to fight. And then one of the other people from the school comes in and he's like, are you the head of the school? And then Denshichiro is like, yes. And he's not, but he's like, I will fight you. And they're like, he's crazy for one. It's very much kind of the same. I thought it was a hint of kind of, I guess if we're diving deeper, he used to be called like, he's a demon, he's crazy, he's wild. And so you see them kind of still calling him that, but he doesn't seem to revel in it anymore. It's just kind of like, it just sort of like brushes off of him. And he's just there to brawl, but he still doesn't seem like he's learned as much as he thinks. I think that he thinks once again that he's found his purpose. And he still hasn't quite, it seems like. And so it still feels like he's a little bit lost. I think more of the impactful aspects of it came after. And also, bizarrely enough, I feel like Marahachi was I don't want to say the entertaining part of it because I don't want to put anything positive on that man.
Yeah, don't.
But I mean, he's just such a loser. He's over like just drinking all the time, and then he is all mad at Oko for doing what she's always done. The thing that he took advantage of, when he was first meeting her, and now he makes her feel bad. But I'm like, you don't do anything, you don't work, you don't make any money, you're just living off of her money, and then you're making her feel bad for doing something that allows her to take care of you, and then you just go get drunk under the building and burn it down. And so don't tell me, because this is obviously my first time reading it, but I'm like, he's gonna let Musashi take the blame, I feel like, because there's the one, I could be wrong, but there's the one person, Gion, I don't know if that's how you say it, but he thinks that, he's like, I'm going to assassinate Musashi because he thinks that he's responsible for the school burning down. And then you see Granny and Gon find the thing and they're like, I bet it was actually Takizo. And if I had to make a prediction, my prediction would be that he is eventually reunited with Granny. And when she asks him, he's going to be like, it wasn't me. And it's just, that's my guess, but I could be wrong. It just seems like something he would do.
Yeah.
If you make a bad assumption about Marahachi,
it's probably right.
You might be right.
You might be right. So, I tried to have an open mind about Marahachi because so I will say in this arc, him wanting to help a stranger. I mean, he didn't know that was Takezo in there. I mean, he was like, oh, if I just run in there and do this and that, and I'll be a hero. And I think that's kind of like a recurring thing for him. Is like he has this idea of this person he wants to be. He wants to, when he went off to war, he wanted to be the war hero. Yeah. He wants to be the person who saves this stranger, but he just never actually lives up to that. And instead he kind of buries himself in other things, whether it's in the first arc it was Oko, yeah, Oko, or in this one he's like, I'm just gonna drink all this sake now. Like he has this desire to do something, and I don't know if it's out of a desire to do good. I don't know if it's a desire to do good though, but it's more like a desire to be a good person.
Like, I think the only reason he wanted anything to happen was because Gion is into Oko, and he's like, wouldn't it be great if that guy died? Like, I think that's the only reason. He was like rooting for whoever the stranger was in the school.
No. But I agree with that. But I think there's that part where I think he like imagines that he's the person there is either dead or going to be dead. He wants to save them. I mean, I don't think that was out of like, you know, Gion. I think that was more just like, I want to be this person who can save someone, but I know I'm not.
Sean and I we enjoy stand-up comedy, and this particular comedian is kind of controversial, but there's a comedian, Patrick, that talks about how he was on a plane, I think in first class, and then he saw a soldier walking past, and he thought to himself, like, I should give my first class seat to that soldier. You know, he's like, he's giving his life to serve his country. I should give my seat to him. He's like, I didn't give my seat to him, but I felt good for just having the thought. And he was like proud of himself for thinking it. And I feel like that's Matahachi, right?
That is so Matahachi.
Yeah. He wants to be, rewarded for thinking of doing something good. Yeah.
But his actions,
a little bit, you know, if he were alive, sorry, this is maybe a stretch, but I feel like he would be one of those people who really thinks that they're changing the world because they shared a tweet. You know what I mean? Like Twitter war, like the Twitter activists, which I'm not saying that it's not, there is significance in sharing things and making things known. So I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad, but I just mean there are some people that will share something and they're like, I'm changing the world. And you're like, I mean, maybe. I feel like Matahachi would be that person that he would make other people feel bad, and he would think he's doing the most when you're like, you're kind of doing the bare minimum.
But I'm going to continue my somewhat defense of Matahachi only because there's only so much. There's only so much I can defend him for. You know, we're early in the series.
Okay, that's fair.
So
he did carry him, right?
And I think what I'm trying to get at is, I find Matahachi frustrating because I think Matahachi is actually a very real person. I think he's written absolutely like someone who exists, like a person who has this, like, I keep repeating myself, but this idea of what they want to be and then just failing at it over and over and over again. And in a way, at the beginning of this, I think he is more relatable than Musashi. Musashi's kind of just this elemental thing, you know. He's hardly a person. Like, you kind of get those glimpses of his humanity when, like, you know, I mentioned Jotaro, but when he's like, your technique is unrefined, and he's like, unrefined, you know, like he has like these moments, or like, you know, when he gets frustrated when the monk, you know, beats him by just like mentioning Atsu. Like, he has these moments of humanity, but he's also like,
he just jumps into the water.
Yeah, he's trying to become like this greater than a person. He's trying to become a legend almost. And Matahachi's so not that. He's so like just a terrible kind of person, but like he's more a person, I think, in some ways than Musashi. Anyways, that's just my Matahachi hot take for the day.
Well, I think that's true, though. I mean, Musashi really did become a historical figure in our real world now, our real life, and there's no talk about Matahachi, thankfully. No, but yeah, Matahachi is really like both of you said, someone who always think and dream big things, but don't act according to that at all. Yeah. So in a way, like, he's quite realistically written. He's very realistically written.
It's like, it's interesting because in some ways it makes sense that him and Musashi used to be friends, because Musashi has these lofty goals, but he goes for them. Like, he actually makes the attempt.
Yep.
Whereas I feel like Matahachi becomes so discouraged when he realizes what it would actually take to be the person that he wants to be, that he despairs at least in this one, where he thinks about it and then he's like, what am I even doing? And he also gets scared very easily. I shouldn't say very easily, because if I were in those positions, I would probably also be terrified. But but to Sean's point about seeing Musashi's humanity, when he thinks to himself, like, am I afraid to die? And then when he's like thinking about Atsu, and you're just like, oh, like you just want him to like settle down and have happiness. You know, he needs a hug. And I feel like they even make a point to show how much just that hug meant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's sad. I will say also, just showing him as a person when he's annoyed at the monk, and so he doesn't cut all of his hair properly.
Yeah. I will say, like, I mean, I'm a big fan of Atsu, and I do want them to just get together. Even reading it now, but him just straight up being like, no, you'd be a distraction to me, is just cold-blooded, man. That makes me sad every time I read it. I'm like, why would you do that, dude? Terrible decision.
But it is the time they lived in. It was the way of the sword. A sword was really a thing back then. So yeah, becoming invincible under the sun is his aim. That's it.
Yeah, take some work.
Yeah,
becoming invincible a little bit.
Couldn't be me. I like Sean too much. I like my spouse. I'm like,
exactly,
you know what? I don't need to be the best at anything, because I'd rather spend time with it. Yeah, I mean, we really don't see too much of because it is, like I was saying before, it is a little repetitive in the school. It definitely feels like we're setting up these. Well, it doesn't just feel like it's setting up his journey. It seems like you're kind of setting up their journeys too. And I feel like, I mean, Sean kind of said, oh, this isn't the fight I thought it was going to be. So, I mean, I'm assuming we're going to see them, because it says like in 1 year. And I just feel like they're going to, my prediction is they're going to be such different men at that point that to some degree, I don't want them to fight. I feel like they're going to grow, and it's going to make me sad to think that they're going to fight one another. I sadly like don't want him to go down this path. I'm like, you don't need to be the best, you know, like you don't need to turn to this.
No, I think that's one of the things that I think is interesting about the series is I kind of think the same thing, where I like Musashi as like this, as a person sort of, and I respect his goals, but there's the actual devastation of he killed 5 people, you know, at the Yoshioka school. And I understand, like, they knew that was a potential thing, you know, that's kind of a part of the gig, you know, living by the sword. But I mean, he goes in there and just, you know, first 5 guys or whatever who take him on, he strikes down, and you're just like, dang. I mean, I don't really know if I want you to do this either. Like, is this healthy? I don't know if that's a healthy lifestyle, but you know, that's what they've all chosen. So
with a wooden sword too.
I know.
So insane.
Less messy, I guess. I think that something, to some degree, you read this and you're like, well, this isn't relatable, because this doesn't, like, I'm never gonna go down this path, and I don't know that too many people, but it is relatable in the sense that anybody who's ever pursued, I guess, any kind of art form knows how unhealthy the attempt at greatness can be, like how all-consuming it can be. And Sean and I met in music school, and people who, there are, of course, prodigies. There's people who are absolutely amazing, and they find a really amazing balance between life and, in our case, like their instruments. And then there are some people where you just see them, that is all they're doing, and they really, not physically, but they very emotionally and mentally beat themselves up all the time for any little mistake, or they give themselves a hard time because they're just not practicing enough. And you see that with athletes, and you see that with any kind of athletic endeavor, whether it be a sport, specific sports, and some of them being like team sports or ballet and things like that. And I feel like ballet is a good example, because actually that's not true. Any sport, like wrestling, you'll see people in an attempt to get into a certain weight class, the ways in which they'll try to lose weight immediately, and they'll lose all this water weight by putting like sweating a bunch and not eating right before, and then it's like that's so unhealthy. And for what? So that you can be a little bit better at, and it's not to dismiss how much effort goes into it, and it's not to say that you can't be passionate about these things, but it is that, is this really healthy to get to these extremes with art, to get to these extremes with any form of something athletic? And I feel like this series shows what it takes, the way in which it kind of completely consumes your life.
Yeah, and it also shows why Matahachi cannot do it.
Yeah. Patrick, that's all. Patrick's just here to like hate on Matahachi.
That was such a great look. Just
I have this pent up hatred towards him for years.
Is it really pent up? I feel like
it's very much out in the open.
Yeah. Look, I don't get to talk about these characters a lot with other people, so I might as well just rant it out.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So tell us more about how much you hate him, Patrick.
Later, after you read more, you will hear more about it from me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes me eager to read more. I'm enjoying the series, but I feel like I'm extra excited to finally get to see your reactions to us mentioning Matahachi when you can finally.
Oh, there's one thing he does that when we get to it, it's very frustrating. It's like, it's
like, how could you?
My Matahachi defense can only last so long. I guess that's my. Yeah, eventually you're just like, no.
At that stage, it will just crumble easily.
Yeah.
It's just, I feel like, Sean, you're trying to kind of meet him where he is in this
right
arc.
now. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm trying not to think of,
where he ends up.
But speaking realistically, what Sean said is right. I mean, Matahachi is written like a real person. And I think that's really why he's so frustrating. Yeah.
Do you know anybody that's like him in real life? Have you ever met a Matahachi?
Kinda, but not to that extent. Not to that extent.
Would you say that there's, beyond just him being an aggravating character, is there something about him that you can't stand? Like, so for example, I think I've mentioned this before, that any character that puts people in danger because they're reckless or because they're selfishly in pursuit of something, sorry if you hear sirens, I can't stand characters like that. And any character that does that, where they just so care about their own, whatever they're trying to attain, they care about it more than the safety of those around them, I get very frustrated with those characters. So is there something about Matahachi that just hits a specific nerve of yours?
I think what I really dislike about Matahachi is how it's really hard for him to realize that every mistake and every issue that he has, everything is because of him. But he keeps blaming his surroundings. That's not helping anyone. That's not helping himself. And I'm really I don't like it. I don't like it.
That's 100%. I mean, that's a very good point. Like, you can't keep blaming other people for the thousands of mistakes you make. Like, at some point, it's on you, buddy.
If you you blame other people like one or two mistakes, like a few, but not for everything, you have to realize that it is your fault.
The common denominator is Matahachi. I can see that, because I get frustrated at people who do that. And I think it's really hard to be differentiated and sometimes to be able to recognize, when am I being reasonable and when am I being unreasonable? And I am so afraid of being like that, of thinking like, woe is me. Because of course, everybody has their bad days. Everybody has their moments where maybe they're having pity parties and they feel like the world is against them because everything is going wrong. And when those kinds of things happen, I feel like in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, people probably think like, well, I just have this idea that my friends are like, well, the problem's you. Like, I'm always afraid that that's what people are actually thinking. So then I'm like, okay, well, what can I do to fix this problem? And so I feel like I'm afraid of being like that. but I don't know that he's afraid of being like, I don't think he's differentiated enough to even think that it might be him sometimes. I think part of it is, oh, go ahead.
No, but I think what's different about let's say you or me and Matahachi is that we have that realization, we have that realization. What if it's us? I think that realization alone, that we can think that it could be our fault or maybe something like that, that's already meant a lot. That is blind to him. Okay.
If we want to get really, really deep and dissect the fact, because this is a realistic thing that some people do. I think like you were saying, you've met some people who have that tendency where nothing's ever really their fault. And I think sometimes there's people who really, really, really deep down, they know it's their own fault, but they can't face that. They can't accept that it might be their fault, because if they accept that, then they don't know what to do with it. So they would rather just act like the world is against them rather than that they're the object of their own demise kind of thing. Like they're the ones responsible for everything. I think some people can't face that. I like how go ahead, Sean.
Oh, I was gonna say I will say in this particular arc, he does show regret for leaving Atsu, and I don't think he seems to blame that on anyone else but himself. I mean, I think there's that part where he's like, he imagines like what life could have been, and it shows like Takezo smiling, which you're like, that never happens, but he's smiling, and then his mom is there, and then Atsu is there with a baby, and he's like, I messed this up, I ruined this. So in that particular moment, I think he was honest with himself about his situation.
Sean, stop trying with
I'm just saying.
He did say in that particular moment.
In that particular moment.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like he really is. The reason that I don't maybe see it in as positive of a light is because I think he's like bemoaning his own circumstances. And he's deciding, oh, it wouldn't have been like this if I was with Atsu. And he's not really thinking about what he did hurting her or how his actions hurt Granny. He doesn't think about how his actions hurt.
Feeling sorry for himself.
Yeah, it's coming from a place of feeling.
That's a good point.
So, I mean, he kind of thinks like, oh, I should have. But him thinking like, I should have chosen Atsu, it doesn't change the fact that you're still a drunk who doesn't work. Like, you don't do anything. So you would still taken.
That is
true. Would be that person just with Atsu. So you'd be in the same situation, and then you'd probably be thinking, I maybe should have been with Oko instead. Like he's still he had that thought because he's not. I don't know. I think
these are solid points. I think you might have changed my mind a little bit there. My defense of Matahachi is crumbling before my eyes.
You're trying your best. I mean, it's kind of funny though that this arc, we don't even see him that much, but I think that there's just not, maybe other people would disagree and people would be like, how can you not mention all of these things about Musashi? But I just don't feel like we're getting as much of, like Sean was saying earlier, how Musashi almost doesn't feel like a person right now. So I feel like we only got a little snippet of him seeming like a person when he's like throwing a temper tantrum because he's like, how do monks not think about like women, basically?
Yeah, I feel like Musashi, the big moments for him just come down to his realization that he was actually afraid to die in that moment. I think that was a big moment for him because he tells himself, I'm not afraid to die. He tells everyone, I'm not afraid to die. I don't care if I die. But in that moment, he was. And then the other one was, I think, really realizing his feelings for Atsu. And then, how he's trying to move on from that. You mentioned it briefly, but yeah, him just jumping in the river is just hilarious to me. Just like, I don't want to think about this. Just dives into the water. You're like, okay. I guess that's one way of dealing with it.
He has I think that's kind of precious in a bizarre way that he has literally no idea how to handle his emotions.
Yeah,
exactly.
Musashi.
But isn't it kind of funny that... Go ahead, sorry, Patrick.
No, I think you will really like next arc more. I think it will develop his character more. Yeah.
I am excited for that because the first arc I thought did a lot more for him than this arc did. So I am excited to see that. But what I was going to say is it is kind of funny that Matahachi, at least up to now, I know you two have other information, but up till now, like Sean pointed out, Musashi did kill some people.
Yeah.
And I'm over here like, isn't it cute when he jumps in the water? And then with Matahachi, it's just like, what a loser. And he's not really like done much. That's part of it too. Is like, you haven't really done anything. You don't do anything worthwhile or helpful. You just kind of make everything a little bit worse.
Yeah.
But
next arc is better, I think, though.
Yeah.
I recall. I'm like, good.
I think that I think there's a fair amount of anime and manga where the first little chunk has kind of a fair amount of he's so powerful, like that kind of feeling. Or Full Metal does it too, where they're like, how did they fix that radio? Is that the Full Metal Alchemist? You know, like they have this like sense of awe and wonder. And then you start diving into things. I think what's been tough is that we've been chatting about this alongside Witch Hat, and Witch Hat, I just feel like immediately has little sprinkles of like, what's going on over here? And it's like got the sense of mystery. So this particular one is kind of taking a little bit more we haven't read that much yet at this. You two have. I haven't read that much yet. So, but it is taking a little bit, and it's falling into a couple of kind of cliche moments here and there, but I am excited to see because I feel like the setup is officially done. I think I don't want to say I was let down by this arc, but after how powerful the end of the first arc is, I think I was expecting a little bit more. And it's kind of like, look at Musashi is still a little bit not quite on the right path. It feels like he's still a little clueless to some degree. He hasn't matured yet, is what I'm trying to say.
I was also a bit surprised that this ended up being a story arc because it's so small. It's only one volume. 1 volume and a half. But yeah, after this one, I think it will get better. Yeah.
I look forward to it. Do you have any? I actually am surprised we even talked as long as we did. I guess if we just mentioned Matahachi, then there will be a fair amount dedicated to him. But is there any more you wanted to add for this first part?
Nah, I don't think so.
No?
Yeah.
Jotaro is kind of adorable, so I look forward to hopefully seeing more of him. I kind of want to see him interact with Musashi.
Yeah. They're funny together.
Their dynamic already is pretty cute. Like when he's like, I'm not following you, you're just walking in front of me. And then him and the monk just run off. And I'm like, oh no. I thought that was sad.
My God.
Anyway, Sean, did you have any final thoughts?
No, I don't think so. I didn't think about it. No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, I look forward. I think the next arc is longer, right?
Yeah, it is longer.
The arcs for
it's I remember it's there's a lot of internal monologue during a fight scene, if I remember correctly. A lot of tense looking at each other. It's like they're looking at each other for a long time. It's very tense.
I look forward to it.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fun. And then also, Patrick, if we want to start another manga now that we've completed the first 10 volumes of Witch Hat, if we want to have another one, or if we want to just focus on Vagabond. I mean, there's so much out there that's good, but we'll figure out if there's any.
Yeah. Which manga do you want to dive next?
Well, I have a few from the library that I need to read. Have you read Silver Spoon?
Oh yeah, I did. It's great manga.
Okay, I need to read that one. But are there any that you're wanting to get into? I want to start Solo Leveling. Have you read any of that one?
Yeah, I finished that. I read a lot of manga. Manhwa.
Patrick, I've been meaning to ask you, have you read Dorohedoro?
No, not that one, because I was waiting for that to be finished, and now it's finished. I think I will. Maybe we can dive into that one.
Isn't that the
weird.
really weird one?
It's weird. I think I read
It's weird.
6 volumes.
Ah, okay.
And then, I mean, I'd like to keep going with it, but it's quite strange.
Oh, okay. I
In a-
haven't,
in
I
a-
haven't read anything. I haven't read
Yeah.
anything of Dodo. Hey, Dodo.
Well, what's one that you would like to read? What are a couple that you would like to read next?
Right.
I
now?
want to jump in. We talked about Girl from the Other Side before. I want to read some of that one. That could be a fun one.
Girl
Maybe
from
not
the-
fun.
Yeah, I haven't read that one too. Maybe I can check that one out. The Girl from the Other Side. And I also want to finish reading Tokyo Revengers. That one, yeah, and then nothing comes to my mind yet right now.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's early for you, it's late for us. We'll figure out later when our brains are maybe working a little better and are more awake. But this was fun. We'll figure out another one and we'll keep chatting and we'll see everybody later.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.